You don't notice the moment your marriage dies, not until the silence becomes heavier than the words. The hum of the AC had become a sound she measured time by. Every few minutes it kicked on with a mechanical cough, then settled into its low, steady whir like a heart still beating even when everything else felt still. Marissa sat at the small dining table, a glass of water sweating beside her untouched plate. The salmon had cooled. The vegetables had gone soft. It was nearly 9 p.m. She didn't look up when Greg walked through the door. The familiar squeak of his gym bag zipper, the keys dropping into the bowl by the entryway, the overly casual, "Hey," as he passed, she had heard it all before. And lately it had come later. And later. "You ate already?" he asked, not really looking at her. "I waited," she replied simply. He offered a breathy chuckle like that was sweet of her, like it was unnecessary. He moved past her toward the kitchen, opened the fridge, then closed it without taking anything. His shirt clung to his back with sweat. He still wore the same track pants she remembered from this morning. "Long session?" she asked, reaching for her fork. Greg shrugged, grabbing a bottle of water. "Yeah, Rachel's trying to get ready for a fitness competition. She wants to train hard." Rachel. Not a name Marissa had heard before. She stabbed a green bean, chewing slowly. "Deadlines," he added, as if offering a second excuse. "We're trying to schedule everyone before the holiday rush." She didn't point out that it was only early June. Memorial Day had already passed. The next real rush was months away. Instead, she nodded. "Hope she's making progress." Greg gave her a smile that was all teeth, no warmth. "She's got discipline. That's rare, you know." The AC kicked on again. He walked past her plate without comment, heading upstairs. She heard the bathroom door shut, then the sound of the shower running. Still chewing, Marissa stood, picked up his sweatshirt tossed lazily across the back of the couch, and folded it with mechanical care. That's when she saw it. A single strand of hair, long blonde, too bright to be hers, looped around the collar. She pinched it between two fingers, examining it without emotion. Then she let it drift into the trash quietly, without ceremony. She returned to the table, pushed her plate away. Greg came down 15 minutes later, hair-wet t-shirt, fresh phone in hand. He flopped onto the couch and scrolled absently. She watched him from the hallway unnoticed. "You barely touched your dinner," she said. "Wasn't that hungry? Had a protein bar on the way home." She nodded. Another mechanical gesture. She watched the TV flash colors across his face. Though it wasn't turned on for him, it was background just like she was. A flickering presence. "You should go to bed," he said, eyes never leaving his screen. "You've got that early meeting tomorrow." She didn't correct him. The meeting had been rescheduled. He would have known that if they were still talking. Upstairs, she brushed her teeth, slowly pausing when she heard the ping from his phone across the counter. The screen was angled just enough. "Can't wait for Sunday." She didn't flinch. Just rinsed, spat, and turned off the faucet. Sunday. Not Saturday. Not a friend. Not family. A plan. A date. She didn't sleep much that night, but she did lie still, eyes open, heart quiet. She listened to Greg's soft snoring beside her and thought about silence. Not just tonight's, but the months of it. The slow erosion of connection. The tiny, accumulating betrayals that didn't leave bruises but left bruising. Around 3 a.m. she reached for her phone. She opened her Instagram, her Facebook, her Twitter. She stared at the rows of curated smiles, vacation sunsets, motivational quotes about love and resilience. She scrolled through her own posts, anniversary dinners, workout selfies, wine nights with Greg's arm around her shoulders. Then she deleted them all. Not the posts, the apps. Not because she was angry, because she was done performing. She wasn't going to post anymore. She was going to watch. Not post. I used to think I knew his routine better than I knew my own. Turns out I just memorized a performance. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in golden haze, the kind that made everything seem peaceful, even the lies. Greg left the house just after 7:00 a.m., wearing a different energy than usual. His step was lighter, his cologne stronger, and he hummed under his breath like a man heading towards something he wanted, not something he was obligated to do. He tossed the same gym bag over his shoulder, kissed her on the cheek like he had a bus to catch, and said, "Don't wait up. Might grab brunch with a client after." She stood in the kitchen, one hand on her coffee mug, the other resting against the counter. Yoga training, he had said. Private. Early session. Very exclusive. He never did yoga. She waited 5 minutes after his car pulled away. Just enough time to not look suspicious. Just enough time to let the front door's echo settle. Then she grabbed her keys and sunglasses, slid her phone into the front pocket of her canvas tote, and followed. It wasn't difficult. Greg was a creature of habit, even in deception. He took the same route out of their neighborhood, paused at the same yellow light, and drove just over the speed limit, confident but never reckless. Marissa kept 3 cars behind, far enough to avoid his rear view, close enough to trace the truth. Instead of turning toward Iron Body Gym, his usual haunt, he veered left into the Arts District. Boutique coffee shops, vegan bakeries, hand-lettered signs, and free-spirited yoga studios. She followed him to a storefront with glass walls and indoor bamboo plants. Lumina Studio, where body meets breath. He pulled into a reserved spot, parked, and stepped out like he owned the place. Then she saw her. A tall, lithe blonde woman in matching cream-colored yoga wear emerged from the front door. Savannah. Even from this distance, Marissa knew. It was the same posture, the same kind of blonde hair that didn't belong on his sweatshirt. The woman approached Greg with the kind of familiarity that wasn't forged in workout reps or personal training sessions. She smiled like she'd seen him naked. Twice. Greg leaned in, subtle, not sloppy. An embrace disguised as a greeting. A hand on her lower back. A moment too long. Marissa didn't gasp, didn't flinch. She picked up her phone, angled it slightly through her windshield, and snapped a single photo. Click. Stored. Dismissed. She waited until they disappeared inside before backing her car away, circling around the block, once then heading home. Back in the silence of their kitchen, she pulled up the studio's website. Clean layout, earth tones, circular fonts that tried to evoke softness. She found the Meet Our Team page easily enough. Savannah Collins, certified yoga and breathwork practitioner. The bio was a string of performative, calm, healing energy, divine feminine strength, sacred movement. There was no mention of her relationship status, but the Instagram handle was there. Marissa clicked. The profile was public. Rows of perfectly lit photos filled the screen, stretch poses, matcha lattes, beach selfies, candlelit journaling rituals. It was all curated chaos. But one post dated this morning stopped her thumb mid-scroll. When your trainer is also your piece. The photo, Greg mid-stretch, smiling with his hands over Savannah's waist. Her caption was followed by a sea of heart emojis and flame reactions. The image had only been up for 20 minutes. Already gaining likes. Already rewriting his story, turning a lie into wellness content. Marissa stared at it longer than she needed to. Her reflection glared back at her from the screen-tired eyes, clenched jaw, silent, screaming louder than any confrontation would have. She didn't comment. Not yet. Instead, she opened her browser and created a new anonymous account. No profile picture, no real name. Just a ghost with a keyboard. She navigated back to the post, checked the timestamp again. 28 minutes now. She clicked on the comment box and began typing slowly. Be careful. Some routines are deadly. Then she hit post. She didn't watch to see who liked it. Didn't wait for Savannah or Greg to notice. That wasn't the point. For now, she had planted her first seed. A digital breadcrumb, quiet, poisonous, and utterly deniable. She was no longer the confused wife. She was the strategist. The truth doesn't hide, it repeats, like a song stuck on a cruel chorus. The morning light slid through the blinds in soft stripes, warm and indifferent to betrayal. Marissa lay still under the covers, breathing evenly, face turned away from the door. She heard Greg moving around their bathroom, quiet, purposeful. He was always more careful when he thought she was asleep. The shower started. It was the sound of steam and distance, the curtain closing on what they used to be. She waited exactly 1 minute. That was how long he took to lather his hair the same every time. Then she slipped out of bed. Barefoot, she padded across the hallway into the closet where Greg's gym bag rested beside his sneakers. Always zipped. Always off limits. Too sweaty, he once told her with a wink, as if the gym bag were some sacred mail-coded artifact she wouldn't understand. That line used to amuse her. Now it served as a blinking red sign. She unzipped it quietly, methodically. Inside was the usual towel, protein bar wrapper, old socks. But under the liner there, a hidden pouch, nearly invisible, tucked beneath the stitched bottom seam. She opened it with 2 fingers. Inside, a small plastic bottle of lubricant, breath mints, a burner phone, cheap black, and obviously new. The kind of phone someone bought when they didn't want to be found. Her fingers didn't shake. Her breath didn't catch. She simply took out her own phone and photographed everything. Each item laid out on the carpet like evidence. She zoomed in on the burner screen. No passcode. She tapped it on. 3 messages from S lit up immediately. Last night was perfect. Miss your hands already. Same time next weekend. She shut it off and placed everything back exactly as she'd found it. Zipped the bag, returned it to its sacred corner, then padded back to bed. The water was still running. She slipped beneath the sheets and closed her eyes. When Greg leaned over to kiss her goodbye 10 minutes later, she offered a sleepy pretending to stir. He left a whisper of cologne on her pillow and a lie in her hair. By noon, she sat across from Jasmine Reed at their usual booth at Southside Cafe. Marissa stirred her coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl like clouds colliding. So Jasmine said, sipping her iced tea, "You didn't just invite me here to catch up, did you?" Marissa gave her a faint smile. "I need a small favor. Just background checking. Off the books. Who am I digging into my husband?" Jasmine blinked once, set down her glass. "Okay." That escalated. "I think he's planning something," Marissa said. "Not just the usual kind of something. Financial, legal." Jasmine leaned forward, the legal assistant instincts kicking in. "What kind of planning? I need to know if the house title's been touched." Jasmine didn't ask why. She simply pulled out her tablet, tapped in a few secured logins, and started searching. Within minutes, her expression changed. "There's no executed transfer," she said carefully. "But there's a draft contract. Prepared about 2 weeks ago. It lists Greg Langston as sole beneficiary of the deed to be transferred in case of dissolution of marriage or death." Marissa said nothing. Jasmine continued, frowning. "It hasn't been notarized. But it's there, Mar. Sitting in the system like it's waiting for the right moment." Silence passed between them, filled only by the clinking of silverware at neighboring tables. The waiter arrived with their orders, but neither touched the food. "He's preparing to leave you, Maris," Jasmine said, voice low, "and take the house." It wasn't even the betrayal that stung the most. It was the arrogance. The idea that he thought he'd get away with it. That he assumed she'd stay asleep figuratively and literally while he rearranged her life behind her back. Marissa folded her napkin, slowly placed it on the table, then finally looked Jasmine in the eye. "Let him think I don't know. Yet. A woman's silence isn't submission. Sometimes it's the sound of sharpening knives." The Langston matriarch's home smelled of old cedar, lemon polish, and secrets too dignified to be spoken aloud. The walls were lined with faded portraits, wedding photos in sepia tones, graduation caps from a time when tassels still meant something, and in one central frame, Greg in his 20s, freshly muscled, standing beside Marissa, with a grin that no longer belonged to either of them. Lorraine Langston opened the door wearing her usual cream cardigan and lipstick so sharp it could cut a man. Her hair was perfect, not a curl out of place. So was her judgment. "Well, this is a surprise," she said, stepping aside with a knowing raise of her eyebrow. "You're either here to borrow a bunt pan or burn down my son." Marissa smiled softly. Maybe a little of both. Lorraine led her into the sitting room, the kind of room no one really sat in. Everything was antique or crystal, down to the sugar bowl that had never seen a fingerprint. Marissa folded herself onto the edge of the settee, knees crossed back straight. It was the posture of someone asking for neither forgiveness nor permission. "I need to talk to you about Greg," she began. Lorraine sat opposite her, hands resting over each other, perfectly still. Marissa didn't rush. "I'm not ready to confront him. Yet. But I have reasons to believe he's shifting things. Behind my back. Financially. Personally." Lorraine sighed. Not exasperated, weary. "Of course he is." Marissa blinked. "Excuse me." Lorraine reached for her teacup, took a slow sip, then placed it gently onto its saucer. "Greg's father once tried to drain our joint savings. Thought I wouldn't notice. Thought if he smiled through it, I'd stay soft. I didn't." Marissa tilted her head. "I didn't know that. Most people don't. We don't put betrayal in the Christmas cards." Lorraine looked toward the window where the afternoon light sliced the curtains into neat lines. "But let me tell you something, sweetheart. Men like Greg think strategy is silence. What they don't understand is that silence, real silence, is what women use when we're thinking 3 steps ahead." Marissa felt something stir in her chest. Not pain. Not fear. It was colder. Sharper. "He's seeing someone," she said quietly. "A blonde. Yoga instructor." Lorraine didn't gasp. She didn't demand proof. She simply stared for a moment, then leaned forward as Marissa pulled out her phone and turned the screen toward her. The photo was clear, Greg's hand on Savannah's back, both smiling like no one was watching. Lorraine studied it like a contract. Her voice, when it came, was steel wrapped in velvet. "She's younger than I expected. And smug." Marissa waited. Let the silence do its work. "You know," Lorraine continued, "if he's anything like his daddy, and I'm afraid he might be, don't wait for the punch to land. Get ahead of it. He's counting on you to stay civilized." "I have no intention of staying still," Marissa said. Lorraine gave a slow nod, something maternal and military in her gaze. "Do you need an alibi for anything?" Marissa's lips twitched. "Not yet." "Just saying," Lorraine murmured, "if you need someone to say you were at my house when something unexpected happens, I'll look them dead in the eye and swear it." The weight of that sentence settled between them. A peace offering shaped like a threat. Marissa stood, sliding her phone back into her bag. "Thank you." Lorraine rose, walking her to the door, fingers lightly brushing the frame as if steadying herself. At the threshold, Marissa paused. "I may need your help again," she said. Lorraine didn't miss a beat. "Let me know when you need me to act surprised." If marriage is about sticking together, he should have read the label on the glue. The garage smelled like motor oil and dust, a place Greg never truly organized. Just like his lies, messy in the corners, but polished where they showed. Marissa moved like shadow and intention, dressed in dark cotton and old sneakers. Her gloves were thin but firm, the kind meant for delicate work that couldn't leave fingerprints. It was nearly midnight. Greg's breathing upstairs had long shifted into a shallow, even rhythm, the lull of a man too smug to be afraid. She pulled the key from the hidden pocket of her robe. A duplicate she had made 3 weeks ago at a kiosk in the strip mall, back when her suspicions were shapeless and without teeth. Now they had names, faces, lavender oil, and Instagram captions. Greg's car unlocked with a soft click. Not a beep, not a chirp. just silence and access. She opened the passenger door and reached under the seat. There it was. The same worn gym bag. Always zipped. Always within reach, but never opened in her presence. Her gloved fingers moved with surgical calm, unzipping the pouch within the pouch. The sacred hiding place of Greg's little double life. The tube was still there. Sleek violet tinted with a custom lavender oil label, aromatic balance Savannah's favorite, according to that story she once posted. Marissa remembered the video Savannah smiling with post-yoga glow saying, "It's all natural, and so smooth it melts stress away." Thousands of likes. One very specific man in the comments. Marissa had ordered the exact same brand down to the cent. Then she emptied it, cleaned it, let it dry for 2 days, and refilled it not with massage gel but with a carefully prepared mixture of non-toxic adhesive. Industrial grade designed to bond quickly with skin and linger. Not dangerous, not permanent, but deeply, deliciously inconvenient. She had tested it, of course, on gloves on cotton on her own fingertips. It would stick fast, burn a little, create just enough chaos to make a memory. Something neither Greg nor Savannah would ever fully explain away. She twisted the cap tight, wiped the label clean with a microfiber cloth, then took a fine-tip pen from her pocket. Inside the folded seam of the label, invisible from the outside, she wrote one word in tiny, perfect lettering: "Oops." Then she returned the tube to its precise place, nestled beside the breath mints and the burner phone. A theater prop returned to its stage. She zipped everything back closed. The door locked the car again. Not a sound left behind. As she walked back into the house, the adrenaline cooled like a storm easing into drizzle. She shed the gloves, tucked them into a paper bag, and slid them deep into the trash can under the sink beneath coffee grounds and eggshells. Then she picked up her phone and opened the meal app. Dinner for 2. Tomorrow night. Lorraine Langston. 6:30 p.m. She scheduled the delivery. Thai food. Extra spice, just like Lorraine liked it. Alibi in place. She whispered to herself, almost smiling. She set her phone down on the nightstand, ready to climb back into bed, when a soft light caught her eye. Greg's phone had lit up. He'd left it face down, but the angle of the screen reflected faintly in the mirror across the room. She didn't even need to pick it up. The message glowed in sharp, unashamed clarity. Same time tomorrow. She didn't move. Didn't blink. Just memorized the timestamp and let the satisfaction settle in her bones. The trap was ready. All they had to do now was walk into it. If you want to catch a liar, don't listen to what they say. Watch what they repeat. Marissa parked 2 houses down and waited. The street was quiet, lined with low oaks and mailboxes that leaned slightly with age. The kind of neighborhood where no one really locked their cars because everyone assumed they knew everyone. And if someone new came around, it didn't take long for the curtains to twitch. Greg's truck pulled into the driveway of the pale green house at 3:47 p.m., right on schedule. She didn't need binoculars. She knew his posture, the way he reversed one-handed and checked the mirrors twice before killing the engine. He sat for a moment, probably checking that damn burner phone, then got out and went around to the passenger side. Savannah stepped out. Her blonde ponytail bounced like it was choreographed. They didn't touch, not in the driveway. Greg was too careful for that. But their bodies moved around each other with practiced choreography. Comfortable, rehearsed, just like liars. Marissa stayed still, only her eyes tracking them as they disappeared behind the front door of 228 Glenridge, the same number she'd found in the Airbnb confirmation email Greg stupidly left open on his laptop for 10 seconds too long. Reserved by C. Landon. Always C. Landon. The house was cute, suburban, deceptively innocent. Shutters painted robin's egg blue, small garden gnome guarding the walkway. A fox pretending to be a lapdog. Marissa wasn't here to knock. She was here to notice. Specifically, she noticed the house next door, beige siding wind chimes, 3 American flags, and a ring camera perched just above the garage. It faced outward, capturing the entire driveway of 228 Glenridge in its frame. Every entrance. Every exit. Bingo. Marissa waited another 5 minutes before backing up, slowly parking in front of the beige house and walking up the path with the kind of hesitant smile only concerned family members wore. The door opened before she knocked. A woman in her late 60s peered out, eyes sharp behind thick glasses. "Can I help you?" she asked. Marissa put on her best mix of concern and vulnerability. "Hi. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Greg's cousin. The man who comes to the greenhouse next door. I'm just a little worried about him." The woman blinked. "Greg. Oh, yes, the handsome one with the truck." Marissa forced a small laugh. "That's him." The woman opened the door wider. "Janet. I live here. Been watching this street since before Google Maps." Marissa nodded. "I know this is an odd request, but I was wondering. I think something might be going on with Greg. He hasn't been himself lately. Is there any chance your security camera might have caught who he brings over just for peace of mind?" Janet didn't hesitate. "Of course, honey. Men are never as clever as they think they are." Within 15 minutes, Marissa was sitting on Janet's plastic-covered couch, sipping sweet tea she didn't want, watching clips from the past 2 Fridays. The second one made her exhale slowly through her nose. There was Greg stepping out of the truck with a bouquet of flowers in one hand and his gym bag in the other. He opened the passenger door and Savannah climbed out laughing, holding what looked like a small overnight bag. They looked comfortable, practiced, as if this was just another routine. Dinner, laughs, betrayal. "They were there almost all night," Janet commented. "I go to bed around 10 and that truck was still there." Marissa nodded, the smile never touching her eyes. "Would you mind sharing this footage with me just for my records?" Janet gave her a conspiratorial wink. "You bet. And guess what? They're booked again this Friday. I overheard the cleaner say the code gets changed every Sunday, but he texts it midweek. Must be a routine." Marissa's pulse remained steady. Janet had no idea just how useful that routine was going to be. She left 20 minutes later with the video file saved discreetly in her cloud sweet tea still on her tongue and Janet's number in her phone. This wasn't just about catching Greg anymore. It was about owning his schedule before he knew it was his last. Every perfect trap begins with a rehearsal. You test the cracks before you push them to collapse. The garage had become her lab, her sanctuary, her war room. It smelled faintly of solvent and cold metal, of plans that didn't need permission and revenge that didn't ask for applause. Beneath the fluorescent lighting, everything had its place, neatly labeled containers, timers, gloves, and the borrowed silicone mannequin from Jasmine's storage unit propped up like a blank accomplice waiting for orders. Marissa set the tube on the workbench. The same aromatic balance label, still crisp. The same gentle swirl of lavender scent that masked what it now held. She pulled on a new pair of nitrile gloves, careful not to touch the adhesive just yet. Everything had to be exact. This wasn't theater. This was timing, chemistry, warfare. She unscrewed the cap and squeezed a thin line of glue across a latex test strip taped to the workbench. Her stopwatch ticked to life. The gel looked innocent. Slick, clear, glistening under the light like nothing more than an overpriced spa product. Except she knew what lived inside it. She leaned in close, watching it react to the air. After 2 minutes, the sheen dulled. At 3, it began to bond. At 5, it refused to peel off without tearing the latex. At 8 minutes, the bond was absolute. Skin to skin, if this were real, would become a silent battlefield of panic and shame. She recorded the drying times in a small notebook. No screens, no trails. Her phone buzzed. "Jasmine?" "You good?" Marissa replied with a photo the mannequin posed stiffly beneath the garage light, arms up like surrender. Then typed final test tonight. It's almost too easy. Jasmine. Just don't get arrested. Also tell me when to delete this thread. Marissa tomorrow. After 10 p.m., she clicked off the app and moved to the main event. The mannequin's synthetic body was smooth, almost lifelike in texture. She applied the glue exactly as she imagined Greg would, with casual impatience, unaware of the consequences. She pressed a second latex sheet onto it and mimicked friction, pressure, motion, heat. She set a new timer and kept going. 2 minutes. 3. 4. The mannequin resisted, then surrendered, bonding at the seams, refusing to pull away. At 8 minutes, Marissa tried to separate the pieces. They held. She smiled. A quiet one, nothing gloating. Just the slow exhale of a woman who knew every variable had been tested, every margin calculated. She didn't need luck. She had science. And motive. Still, she had a backup plan. If the glue failed, she'd release the footage. If Greg saw it coming, she'd leak his messages. If Savannah played innocent, she'd show her the deed contract. The trap was layered like her grief, like her fury. But tonight? Tonight was for execution. She put the mannequin away, wiped every surface clean, and sealed the glue tube back into its pouch. Then she walked into the house, turned off the kitchen light, and paused at the foot of the stairs. Her reflection stared back at her from the microwave door, dark eyes, calm mouth, nothing of the old Marissa left behind. She whispered to herself, voice low and certain, "Let's make this a night to remember." The best lies are half-truths. That's why alibis work so well, they always sound like something you'd believe. Marissa arrived at Lorraine's house with a small overnight bag and an even smaller smile. The sun was still high, casting soft amber light across the manicured hedges and flower beds Lorraine fussed over each week like they were members of a jury. Marissa rang once. The door opened before the echo faded. "Well, don't you look unbothered?" Lorraine said, stepping aside with a nod of approval. "Unbothered is the new dangerous," Marissa replied, brushing a wisp of hair behind her ear. "Ready?" Lorraine was already reaching for her purse. "Spa first, then steak. I want to be seen ordering the expensive wine." They pulled out of the driveway just after 3:05 p.m. The Lexus hummed over the smooth roads like a sermon with air conditioning. Marissa didn't speak much, and Lorraine didn't press. Some things didn't require conversation, only coordination. At the spa, they surrendered their phones to slim wooden lockers lined with tiny brass keys. Marissa paused before closing hers, then texted one final message to Jasmine. "If anything goes sideways, erase everything. You know what to do." Jasmine replied with a single emoji. Marissa smiled as she turned the key and slid it into her pocket. The spa was cool and softly lit, full of whispers and the sound of distant water, too calm for what tonight would hold elsewhere. She let the masseuse knead her tension, not because she needed to relax, but because tension would serve her no more tonight. By the time they stepped out at 5:45, her skin glowed and her heart rate had not spiked once. Dinner was at a bustling bistro known for its open kitchen and curated wine pairings. The hostess greeted Lorraine by name. Their booth had perfect lighting. Just enough noise for plausible deniability, but not enough to obscure overheard laughter or the clinking of glasses. Ideal in every way. Lorraine insisted on ordering the Wagyu and snapping a photo with their server. "For the feed," she said dryly, "so no one asks where you were tonight." By 6:20 p.m., the wine was flowing. By 6:35, their waiter had tagged Lorraine's account in a story with "Our favorite ladies back again." Marissa's face was visible. Her voice in a passing video clip said something benign about dessert. At 6:40 p.m., her phone vibrated from deep in her bag. A text from Janet. They just went in. 6:40. Trucks in the driveway. Marissa felt no spike of adrenaline, no rush of victory. Just the smooth click of a piece falling into place. Her alibi was ironclad, her presence was visible, her hands were in every legal sense clean. Lorraine raised her glass. To distance, she said, voice low, and to timing. They clinked quietly, the sound lost in the buzz of other diners. Then Marissa's phone buzzed again. She didn't even need to open the app. The preview told her everything. Here's Savannah, stretch private sessions keep me glowing, photo A mirror selfie. Hair perfect, top cropped. Lavender bottle just barely in frame. Timestamp, 6:43 p.m. Marissa stared at it for a long, slow breath, then turned the phone face down on the table. They're right on schedule, she said to no one in particular. And for the first time in weeks, she let herself order dessert. Some people say, love binds. Tonight, it's something far stronger. The guest house was lit with soft amber light, the kind meant to flatter skin and lower inhibitions. Greg had arrived early, eager or at least conditioned to fall into the same Friday night rhythm he had carved out over weeks of predictable lies. Savannah followed late enough to keep it flirtatious, early enough to prove enthusiasm. Inside, the Airbnb smelled faintly of sandalwood linen spray and Greg's cologne. It was all curated like the playlist on low volume, the bottle of chilled Chardonnay, the folded towel by the bed. Even the lavender lubricant, her favorite she'd told him weeks ago, waited dutifully on the nightstand uncapped, as if inviting the next mistake. They kissed the way cheaters do, rushed hungry, too confident. And then came the shift. Savannah jerked back first. Wait, she said, a note of confusion already sliding into discomfort. What the hell? Greg moved instinctively, trying to pull away, and a sound like skin tearing echoed in the tiny room. She yelped. No, wait, don't stop. She screamed, voice sharper now, high-pitched, completely off script. He tried to twist, and she howled. The movement pulled a patch of her skin raw and caught into him. Their bodies were glued. Literally. Greg looked down, breath hitching. The bottle on the nightstand was no longer charming in its familiarity. He grabbed it, turned it slowly. Inside the cap, someone had written a single word in small, almost polite handwriting. Oops. His blood ran cold. Savannah was crying now, curled into herself as much as she could. It hurts, Greg. What the fucks is happening? I don't know this. This isn't. He stammered, panicked. They tried again, gently, desperately. Every inch they pulled apart brought fresh pain. The glue had done more than bond, it had fused. Their panic rose with every heartbeat, every failed attempt at separation. From the house next door, Janet sat on her porch swing, sipping tea. The banging had started 5 minutes ago, the yelling 3. She'd tilted her head, her eyes narrowing behind square glasses. Then came the scream. She set her mug down, picked up her phone, and dialed. 911, what's your emergency? I think. Someone's in distress at the Airbnb next door, screaming. Something's not right. By the time the paramedics arrived, Greg and Savannah were whimpering, half-naked, stuck, humiliated. The team took one look, exchanged glances, and radioed for backup. Ma'am, sir, please stay still. We're going to try and lift you onto the stretcher as one unit. 1 unit, Savannah shrieked. Greg's voice cracked. No photos. Please, no photos. But this was 2023, and Janet had already sent a clip to her niece. Within hours, the footage had hit group chats, message boards, and the quiet corner of Twitter where scandals bloom like wildfires. They're caught in perfect 720p, a couple being wheeled out under emergency blankets, arms and hips, entangled faces white with horror. At 9:02 p.m., Marissa's phone buzzed. A message from Jasmine. This you attached a link to the trending video. Hashtag, aha, stuck on you caption, when karma uses industrial-grade glue. Marissa didn't reply. She just watched it once. Then turned her phone screen down again and exhaled, slow, steady, unshaken. Revenge doesn't always explode. Sometimes it whispers. And it whispers only to the one who earned it. The morning sky was the color of regret, overcast, drowsy, barely trying to wake. Rain tapped at the kitchen window in slow rhythms, a metronome of quiet consequence. Marissa stirred her coffee in lazy circles, the spoon clinking against porcelain like a bell that no longer needed to toll. She heard the garage door open at exactly 9:17 a.m. Footsteps followed, dragging, hesitant, nearly soundless. The front door didn't creak. He must have oiled it recently, probably to impress someone who cared about such things. Marissa didn't look up as Greg stepped inside, the scent of antiseptic and cheap hospital detergent arriving a full second before he did. He stood there just inside the doorway, damp and deflated. His clothes were wrinkled, hoodie pulled over his head like a child in timeout. She could hear his breathing, shallow and clipped, as if even oxygen dared not enter his lungs too quickly. She took another sip of coffee. He made his way toward the kitchen, footsteps muffled by damp socks. Not a word. Not even a fake cough to break the silence. Marissa didn't offer a greeting. She didn't even shift her posture. She simply let the moment stretch and bend until it almost cracked. Greg opened the fridge, reached for the orange juice, found it gone. He closed it again. Still silence. He glanced over his shoulder just once, as if to gauge the atmosphere. But Marissa didn't meet his eyes. Her expression was unreadable, serene in the way still water masks a current strong enough to drown. Eventually, he disappeared down the hall. Marissa waited 5 more seconds, then set her mug down and walked into her study. She called Jasmine. "It worked," she said calmly. "Holy Maris, I've seen 6 different TikToks. They're on Reddit. TMZ is sniffing. You okay?" "I'm fine," she replied. "Phase 1's done. Let's start the paperwork." "You're sure?" "Positive. I want everything clean. I want the house. And I want him to sign it before the weekends." "Got it. I'll prep a draft today. Email or hand-delivered, with a pen." They hung up. At 10:03 a.m. Lorraine rang the bell. She didn't wait for an answer. Just left a small canvas tote at the doorstep and texted one word, "delivered." Marissa brought the bag inside and placed it on the kitchen counter. Inside, printed receipts, printed photos, timestamps, notated screenshots, copies of text messages, and one neatly labeled USB drive. The last page in the binder was handwritten in Lorraine's elegant cursive, just in case he forgets who raised him. She almost smiled. By noon, Greg reemerged. He looked like a ghost dressed in regret. Eyes downcast, movements stiff. He opened the trash can to throw something away and froze. Marissa didn't need to turn around. She heard the pause, the rustle of plastic, the unmistakable sound of a hand brushing against something once familiar, now cursed. Silence. Then, a sharp inhale. The cap of the lavender lubricant had come loose in the trash. The word "oops" written inside stared up at him like a verdict. He turned slowly. Marissa looked up at last, her voice calm as vapor. "Creamer?" she asked, lifting the porcelain pitcher gently toward him. He said nothing. Just stood there, hollowed out, undone in all the ways that mattered. She didn't need to say another word, because the victory was already complete, and it didn't need applause. Scandal spreads faster than truth, especially when you're pants down and trending. The morning sun bled through the linen curtains in long golden shafts, tracing lazy stripes across Marissa's hardwood floors. A gentle breeze stirred from the cracked window, carrying the scent of crepe myrtles and summer soil. Her house was quiet, eerily, so like the calm eye of a storm that had already passed, but left behind debris still shifting in its wake. Her phone buzzed once, then twice. Then it wouldn't stop. She reached for it without urgency, already suspecting what she'd find. A flurry of notifications lit up her lock screen: text messages from Jasmine, Lorraine, old colleagues she hadn't spoken to in years. Even her hairdresser had messaged, "OMG, is this him?" She unlocked her phone and opened the first link. The video started with a shaky angle from Janet's Ring camera. The quality wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. There was Greg clear as day helping Savannah out of his car, giggling like teenagers' arms tangled as they stumbled toward the Airbnb door. The clip cut to frantic shouting from inside the guest house, then paramedics arriving. The final seconds captured Greg and Savannah being wheeled out half-naked, fused at the hips draped in emergency blankets that didn't quite preserve their dignity. The audio had caught Savannah screeching, "Don't film us," a plea ignored by the growing crowd. She glanced at the view count. 284, 932. And climbing. TikTok, Twitter, Reddit. Even Facebook moms had gotten hold of it now. A new message from Janet buzzed in. "You're welcome." Marissa sipped her tea jasmine with a dash of honey. She didn't smile, but her pulse was a steady, satisfied hum. Greg hadn't come downstairs yet. She imagined he was still scrolling through the wreckage, trying to plug leaks in a ship already sunk. It wouldn't help. The water was already over his head. Another message blinked in. This time from Jasmine. His gym just suspended him. Indefinitely. She tapped the link Jasmine had sent. TitanFit's official Instagram post read, "We are aware of an incident involving one of our trainers. We do not condone unprofessional behavior. Effective immediately, Greg Langston has been placed on administrative leave, pending further review." She knew what that meant. A suspension wrapped in PR politeness, but behind closed doors he was radioactive now. Greg's gym clients were no fools. Half of them were married women. The other half followed the drama like a soap opera. Word had already spread. She flipped open the group chat from Greg's old Saturday spin class. Dropping out, "You. This is why I never trusted married but flirty. Y'all, he really thought no one would find out." Another ping. Jasmine again. "Wait for it." Marissa barely had time to respond before her phone chimed again. This time with a forwarded email, subject termination of contract TitanFit Greg. After careful consideration, we regret to inform you that your contract has been terminated effective immediately. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. HR Department. She stared at the screen, not with surprise, just finality. It had all come undone, not with screams, not with fists, but with time, patience, and a glue bottle marked "Oops." She walked to the window and let the light warm her face. Behind her, somewhere in the house, Greg's voice cracked in quiet disbelief as another message arrived. She didn't need to hear the words to know what it said. She returned to the kitchen, poured herself a second cup of tea, tapped the spoon against the rim with slow, delicate rhythm. Then she whispered to herself with the stillness of someone who had planned every move. 2 down. 1 to go. People don't confess when they're sorry. They confess when they're scared. The kettle clicked off behind me with a soft metallic sigh. Steam curled up, kissing the edge of the cabinets. I poured hot water over jasmine tea leaves, letting the scent drift upward, calm and unhurried. My hands were steady. He was in the doorway. I didn't turn to greet him. I didn't ask if he wanted anything. I didn't need to. The silence stretched between us like something fossilized, ancient, layered, already dead. "I messed up," he said, voice cracked and dry. "I know that." I stirred my tea. "It wasn't supposed to. I didn't plan for it to go this far." He stepped inside, shoulders hunched like a child sent to confess after breaking a window. "Savannah, it just happened. Just happened." That phrase again, as if intimacy fell out of the sky and landed in their laps, or glued them together by divine accident. "I felt disconnected," he continued. "You were always working late, focused, distant." My back still faced him. The spoon tapped lightly against the porcelain mug. "I'm not saying that's your fault," he added quickly. "I just mean, I was lonely. And she was there. And it felt easy." I turned then just enough to see him. Not fully. I didn't want to give him that. His face was pale, blotchy in places like he'd cried before coming down. His eyes didn't meet mine. They hovered somewhere around the floor tiles. "I should have told you earlier," he said. "I should have ended it." But it got out of hand. And now. He trailed off. I waited. He finally looked at me. "When did you know there it was?" The one real question in the sea of practiced regret. I took a slow breath, let it rest on the tip of my tongue like honey before I answered. "The day you called her babe in the same tone you used to say my name." His mouth opened, closed. There was nothing to say to that. I walked past him, mug in hand, and sat at the kitchen table. The steam ghosted upward. My tea was too hot to drink, but I didn't care. I held it like a shield. He stood there looking at me like a man waiting for a verdict. But the trial was already over. He just hadn't seen the jury slip out the back. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he mumbled. "You did anyway." He swallowed hard, eyes rimmed red. "Can we fix this?" It was almost laughable, the softness in his voice. The way he said it, like we had a leak under the sink or a misplaced tax form. I leaned forward slowly and opened the envelope I had placed on the table that morning. The papers were already signed. Neat. Final. I slid it across the wood grain toward him, the manila edge stopping just short of his hand. He stared at it like it might bite. He didn't touch it. "This is final," I said. I really." He stood there in silence. His breathing was uneven. I imagined his thoughts bouncing between panic and disbelief, like a trapped bird flinging itself against a window. "Do I deserve this?" he whispered. I looked him square in the eyes. "I'm not punishing you, Greg. I'm freeing myself." That was the difference. The shift. The cleaving of past from present. No revenge. No screaming. Just facts on paper and freedom at the end of a pen stroke. He stared at the envelope like it was a coffin. I sipped my tea. It had cooled enough to taste now floral bittersweet. She slides a manila envelope across the table, signed divorce papers. The mistress always thinks she's the exception until she becomes a cautionary tale. The apology video was barely 90 seconds long, but by the time Savannah whispered her final, "I never meant to hurt anyone," it had already been stitched into half a dozen TikToks with reaction faces, captions like crocodile tears, party of one, and sped-up violin music playing mock sympathy in the background. From her kitchen table, Marissa sipped her lukewarm tea, watching the chaos unfold. Savannah's face, normally filtered to porcelain perfection, was raw, now no makeup, puffy eyes, strands of blonde hair pulled into a desperate top knot. The comments scrolled faster than she could read them. "This you girl thought she was the main character. You knew he was married. You just didn't care." By lunch, influencer gossip accounts picked it up. One even paired Savannah's crying video with Greg's gym promo from last year: "Trust Titan Fit. Integrity. Strength. Discipline." The irony was too good to pass up. Another meme followed, showing the two of them glued together in a tabloid-style headline, "The couple that stuck together." Literally. Marissa didn't share, didn't comment, didn't even smile. She just watched. Greg was pacing upstairs. She could hear him from the way the floor creaked every few seconds, circling like a caged animal. He hadn't said much since signing the divorce papers, and he hadn't dared ask her for sympathy. Instead, he picked up his phone. The texts he sent to Savannah were short at first. "Are you okay?" No reply. "Can we talk?" Read. Ignored. He waited 10 minutes before calling. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. He tried again. And again. Marissa muted the news alert pinging her phone and refreshed Savannah's page. There it was. "This account no longer exists." But Savannah hadn't just deactivated her social media. She'd vanished. Sponsors dropped her overnight. Her discount codes were no longer valid. Commentators speculated about breach of morality clauses. One skincare brand issued a polite but firm statement: We value integrity and do not condone unethical behavior online or offline. Marissa admired the PR team's precision. Ruthless but efficient. Down the hall, Greg's phone buzzed once. He unlocked it quickly. Then, silence. He walked into the room, his face-pale eyes flicking to Marissa's expressionless one. "She's gone," he said, voice hoarse. Marissa didn't lift her eyes from the tablet screen in front of her. She scrolled slowly, then placed it on the table. Her voice, when it came, was soft. Colder than any scream. "Then maybe now you're free. Freedom has a price. And for once, he's the one paying it." The conference room smelled like espresso and old paper, sterile, corporate, unbothered by the lives unraveling inside it. I sat perfectly still, my back straight, hands folded neatly on the mahogany table. Across from me, Greg bounced his knee under the table like a child waiting for detention to end. He couldn't meet my eyes. Jasmine, poised in a navy suit sharper than any blade I'd ever wielded, slid the folder across the table. "As outlined in Exhibit D, we've included timestamps, metadata, and video corroboration for all incidents of infidelity," she said. Her tone was calm, nearly pleasant. The arbitration officer, a silver-haired man who looked like he'd rather be golfing, skimmed the pages with a furrowed brow. "Mr. Langston, do you contest any of this?" Greg cleared his throat. "I was under emotional duress," he said, voice cracking slightly. "None of this was premeditated. I didn't manipulate assets. I panicked." "Panicked," Jasmine repeated, glancing at me. "Before or after transferring the draft deed into your sole name?" Silence. The officer exhaled. "Let's move on." Everything was methodical. Receipts, emails, footage, statements. Greg flinched every time a new piece of evidence surfaced. I didn't. I just watched the wreckage he built collapse under his own signature. Eventually, we arrived at the division of assets. The house, the 401k, and the joint investments will remain with Mrs. Langston. Jasmine said, voice light but firm. "Mr. Langston will retain his vehicle, all fitness equipment, and private accounts opened post-separation." Greg's face twitched. "You didn't have to take everything." I looked at him for the first time that morning. "I didn't," I said, calm as tea. "Just what you thought I wouldn't notice." His jaw tensed, nostrils flared, but there was nothing left to fight for. Not here. Not now. The arbitration officer signed the agreement. With a flourish of his pen, 18 years of marriage became a footnote. I stood up, thanked him politely, and gathered my documents. Jasmine pressed a reassuring hand to my shoulder as I passed her. Greg didn't speak. He just sat there, hollowed out, sunken. Finally, he rose, grabbed his single black duffel bag from the floor, and walked out without looking back. Greg leaves the office carrying a single duffel bag. I thought I'd spend my silver years beside a man. Turns out I prefer Roman statues. They lie less. The cobblestones beneath my sandals were uneven, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps heavier than mine. I moved slowly through the crowd at Piazza Navona, letting the soft breeze carry the scent of roasted chestnuts and sun-warmed stone. It was late afternoon. The shadows of the statues stretched long, almost as if they were exhaling. I found a small cafe tucked just beyond the main square. A red-striped awning shaded 2 empty tables. I chose the one facing the fountain, slipped off my sunglasses, and sat with a quiet exhale. I ordered in the simplest Italian I could muster, un espresso per favore. The waitress was older, wiry, with kind eyes. She nodded once without a smile, the kind of woman who knew stories she'd never tell. I liked her immediately. I pulled out my journal and a few blank postcards. One bore a painting of the Colosseum at sunset, the sky a palette of gold and bruised pinks. I addressed it to myself. "Dear Marissa," I wrote, "you made it. Not because someone brought you here, but because you brought yourself. Don't forget that." A couple sat down at the next table. mid-40s like me. They were arguing quietly at first, then with sharp Italian consonants that sliced the air like knives wrapped in linen. I didn't understand every word, but I didn't need to. Her face exhausted, his hands defensive. I saw us, the version of us that might have kept going faking forever. I watched her purse her lips and lean away. I knew that look. I had worn it for years. The espresso arrived with a small biscuit I hadn't asked for. The waitress placed it down gently, then looked at me for a long moment. "You look like someone who finally left something behind," she said, her English, thick but clear. I smiled. I did. She nodded once and left me alone with the steam curling from my cup. I opened my journal again and wrote on a fresh page, "He broke the vow." I rewrote the ending. A church bell chimed in the distance. Somewhere a violinist began playing O Sole Mio. Children laughed. Tourists took selfies near Bernini's Fountain of the Four Rivers, and I sat surrounded by 1,000 years of resilience, letting the ache of my past dissolve like sugar in coffee. Rome wasn't the reward. Leaving was.